Hello, this is Nick Jacobs from Discovery Academy. This is video number 4 in our series of how-to videos that should help make you productive users of Focal Point K-12. Again, I've said this over and over in previous videos, but we are excited to see how this assessment platform is going to promote professional development with our staff through the concepts of formative assessment versus summative assessment, designing assessments themselves, using data to drive instruction, and providing timely feedback for our students and families. And really creating that culture of what John Hattie refers to as assessment-capable learners. This happens when we can get our students to a point where they can really evaluate their own learning, and in turn they learn how the assessments can improve their learning, and essentially, the students begin to see themselves as their own teachers. I think we get caught up sometimes in what's more impactful for student growth, formative assessments or summative assessments. And the simple example that I've heard describes a restaurant where a cook, when the cook tastes the soup, it's formative assessment. When the guests taste the soup, it's a summative. In both cases, you want the soup to taste good, so if the teachers represent the cook and the students represent the dinner guests, our goal would be for students to have the ability to explain what ingredients are needed to make the soup better for them, not just relying on the cook's expertise. So for the case of this video, it represents a starting point for that perfect world and getting there with Focal Point K-12. It's important to believe that we can get there with our students. It just takes time, work, commitment, and growth on our part as adults. So we are going to be exploring the data dashboard today and pick out a couple of specific reports that can help you begin the important discussions about improving your teaching craft and in turn improving your student outcomes. So we begin at the home page once you log in. And by the way, I did not mention this, but as you probably already know, your access actually is through PowerTeacher. So I just wanted to throw that out there to make sure everybody was aware. So once you are at your home page, you are going to go at the top and select the menu icon, and along the left side, you're going to see a number of displays that you would have seen from previous videos when we were creating tests. You're going to look at the data dashboard and click it. And one really helpful tip to keep in mind whenever you intend to go back in this data dashboard is always use this small arrow right here. Okay, never ever use the back arrow in your service provider. Like here, it's Google Chrome. Always use this small arrow because it won't mess you up when you're trying to navigate this data dashboard. So here is what your data dashboard looks like. Again, this is Miss Lavina in our dummy training account. But once you click in, it's got a number of options here along the top. When we first get started this year, there won't be any data. So keep that in mind. And as time goes on, some of these features or reports will become more and more impactful. And we're going to be looking at 2 items specifically in this video. The first thing we'll look at is classroom assessments, which is this third tab here. As you'll see, they're going to be organized in classes that you have. I mentioned previously that, for elementary teachers, it will likely be your 2 core classes because this is our first year using Focal Point K-12. Your classes will probably be ELA and math. And as we go up into the higher grade levels, you'll probably have, say, for a junior high teacher, you'll probably have grades 6, 7, and 8 if you're a math teacher. And if you get into high school, you might have a geometry class and an algebra 1 class. So you'll be able to access the results for each assessment you give through Focal Point K-12. So we're going to take a look at an assessment. For this video, we're going to look at ELA quiz April 18th. And as it loads, we're going to see a couple of different things as as you look here, it tells us how the class did overall and how each student performed on the assessment. You see here that overall combined the class performed at a 65%. And there are a couple of options here. So first, let's see how each student specifically answered the assessment questions. And we can do that by clicking where it says click here to view results by question. And so here, and this is downloadable, so you can print this out actually. And as you download it, it's easier for me to download it in an Excel file because you can manipulate the orientation so that it prints out the way you want it to look. But here we've got each question, and if it's highlighted in green, that represents the student answering the question correctly. Now, keeping things in mind, there are only 4 students here in this class, and the assessment only has 5 questions. And it's clear by looking at question number 5 that nobody got this correct. There was also a bit of struggle with question number 2. So if I'm this teacher and I'm discussing this assessment with my TBT, I would have a copy of this assessment to see if this question number 5 was worded in a funky way. I'd also reflect about the skill needed for answering question 5 and think about how the instructional strategy worked when I taught this standard. And I'd probably even do the same for question number 2. Okay, again, when I want to go back, I'm using this little blue arrow here. And so as we can see that this 65% is a little deceiving because, you know, all of the students got question number 5 wrong. The other way that we can look at this is by expanding the standard. So if you see this little plus button, I'm going to expand these standards. Because I know there are 5 questions, and I see, once I expand this English Language Arts tab, that it shows that there are 5 questions that are attached to foundational skills, and there are 5 questions that are attached to informational text. So I can conclude that it's likely not the standards themselves that are causing this trip up, but something else that contributed to these incorrect answers. So I'm going to expand these until I get access to each individual question. And again, if you bring a copy of your assessment to this TBT meeting, these steps wouldn't necessarily be necessary to expand these to get a good look at the question prompts themselves. So as you can see, there are a couple of different, and you know, all of these answers are the exact same percentages. So I'm assuming that every question had these 3 assessment tags to each, or these 3 standard tags to each question. But I'm going to expand one of these until I get access to the 5 questions. And as I navigate through this, there's the 5 questions. And again, like the results viewed by questions, it shows that each student got question number 5 wrong. So I'm going to click on question number 5 to see what's going on. Oh, so as I navigate to this question, it appears that I included in this assessment a question that was in Spanish. So that would make it certainly difficult or muy difícil to be successful. When question number 2 is examined, as we'll get to here in just a moment, question number 2. When we look at this, it's a question that involves the vocabulary term pray. So again, I would look back to reflect on how I taught vocabulary in general, what specific instructional strategy that I used, things like that. So those are really the 2 ways that I would start looking at my classroom assessment data. And again, this all ties into our school goals and our company goals when it comes to using student data to drive instruction, using it for those valuable conversations. So in addition to examining classroom assessments, the other place that you would use is the Standards Mastery tab. So, and like I said earlier, it's going to be hard to make use of this feature when the year begins because there's really not going to be a whole lot of data. But when it comes time for parent-teacher conferences, maybe after that quarterly benchmark assessment, after the first, second, and third quarters commence, and any mid-year meetings that we might have to take a hard look at how we did as a school and by grade level, this Standards Mastery tab will become very valuable. But, as you see, it's all broken down into class, and these are all specific to ELA and math. So if I want to delve into ELA in this class and how my students did in mastering their standards, again, this is a dummy count. There's only 4 students. But all of the standards that we would have covered up to this point would be across this way here. And again, using these tools to contribute to creating this culture of assessment-capable learners where students see themselves as their own teacher, again, is the end game here. That's what we're all working towards. So these items, these options in the data dashboard could serve as the first couple of items in getting you there. Again, I hope this video was useful for you. We are simply trying to get you started here. There's a pretty deep rabbit hole you can explore, and you can do that at your own pace and at your own comfort level. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I wish everybody the best.